Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, NBA reporter for Buha's Block, and welcome to another live show. The Lakers lost their third straight game tonight to the shorthanded Phoenix Suns. They were without Devin Booker, Dillon Brooks, and Jordan Goodwin. LA is trending in the wrong direction at the wrong time. They are now 34-24, again, lost three straight. And with Minnesota currently leading the Clippers deep into the fourth quarter, if Minnesota wins, the Lakers will be 2 games back of the 5 seed, which is not where they want to be at this point in the season. Another crunch time loss for LA. They lose this one by 3, 113-110. So consecutive clutch losses for them. Also, now 2 of the past 3 games, they have allowed 22 or more threes. There's an element of hot shooting, but 3-point defense has been an issue for LA all season. And if you look at some of the data, they've actually been fortunate at times with their 3-point defense in terms of the quality of threes that they're giving up and opponent shooting against that, especially against the zone. Did not play zone tonight, strictly went man, but we also saw the limitations with their man defense, both in terms of transition, but containing the ball, rotating out to shooters. And once they got in the blender, they were never really able to get out of it. So really disappointing loss for the Lakers. I want to say this is rock bottom. I'm not quite sure. It feels like they could still go a little bit lower here. Like that game on Saturday, I was asked after the Magic game if LA was going to go 4-0 over this upcoming stretch against Phoenix, Golden State, Sacramento, and New Orleans. I said potentially. I didn't feel great about it. I said I thought they'd probably go 3-1. The game I thought they would maybe lose would be that Golden State game because Phoenix has not been playing well. They've been blown out several times recently as they've been shorthanded without their 2 best players. But tonight, their ball pressure, their speed, them getting to 50-50 balls, them getting to offensive rebounds, and despite I'll say a valiant effort from LA over the final 5-6 minutes of this game to cut a 12-point deficit into a tie game at one point late. It was too little too late, and there are no moral victories for this team at this point in the season, especially not against this caliber of opponent. Like, this is a lottery level opponent that they just played without Brooks and without Booker, and even, I would note, without Goodwin. So the fact that they had some of the stretches they had in this game, and we're even down 12 with 6 minutes left in what to me felt like a must-win game. This felt like a game we should have seen some urgency from the Lakers. We should have seen some desperation coming off of the Boston loss, coming off of the Orlando loss. This was supposed to be a get-right opportunity for them. You had the ESPN article drop earlier today on Deandre Ayton. Luka has been getting dragged in the media for a couple weeks now. This felt like a moment to turn things around, if only momentarily, but instead they have continued to spiral out of control. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to all the real ones. Appreciate the late night gang for still tuning in after just a brutal loss and another brutal loss. And the Lakers have had several of those. They've had them all season, but this one to me is one of the toughest losses of the season. Like the blowout losses to the good teams, the great teams, those are discouraging, and certainly from like a measuring stick, what can we extrapolate out into how LA profiles as a contender, how they profile in a playoff series. Certainly those losses are bad, and I do weigh those losses more than any, but these are also, like, the Lakers have not had a lot of crunch time losses. They've not had a lot of losses to bad opponents. And again, Phoenix is right there as the 7th seed, but like this version of them, I think this would be like the Lakers beating the full strength Suns without Luka and Austin, or without Luka and LeBron. I guess feasibly possible. It was a bad loss. That there's no way around it. Blue Big Pictures, the Lakers are trending in the wrong direction at the wrong time. And this was supposed to be, this was a relatively easy pocket of the schedule for the Lakers. If you look at this homestand, I thought they should have gone at least 5-3. They went 4-4. then this upcoming stretch here was supposed to be a get right stretch with Phoenix, Golden State, Sacramento, and New Orleans. But Golden State, with how they're playing, that's far from a gimme on Saturday. Then the Lakers have to turn around and play second night of a back-to-back and third game in 4 nights against Sacramento, who just lost 15 games in a row. And I don't know if you guys have seen their fans are doing like Marvin's Room style music videos breaking down the Kings losses. So it's like the Kings are in a dark place right now, but the Lakers have to show up. And we've seen a trend throughout the season, but especially as the season has progressed, if you play with a certain amount of energy and focus and force, you are going to at least be competitive with the Lakers, if not have a real chance to beat them. And then that's to say nothing of like, if you're really talented and skilled and you play like that, you're just going to blow them out. So even the Kings game, I'm like, they should beat the Kings. I'm not saying they're going to lose to the Kings, but that game is like, I think sneakily tougher. Anytime you're playing third game in 4 nights, that's always a sneaky tough game, regardless of opponent. And then New Orleans, I think that should be a win. And then they go out to Denver later in the week. But I mean, yeah, they get the fortune of, should be not full strength Nuggets, but Jokic is back, and they just had a big win against Boston. They just blew out Boston at home. I believe it was the second night of a back-to-back for the Celtics, but still, like that'll be a real test for LA next week. But I would say one thing that has really stood out these last couple of games is the Lakers' body language and energy and spirit has not really been there. And I don't want to say this is broken, because I think that's just hyperbolic and that's not true, but it does feel a bit fractured right now, and everything feels fractured to a degree when you're losing and when things aren't going right. But I just have not really liked the disposition from the group, and they have not felt like they're on the right page. And again, tonight they played like 8 to 10 minutes of serious basketball, maybe 12. Like if you really want to stretch it to 14, somewhere in that like 8 to 12, 8 to 14 minute range, if you really want to be generous here. And the fact that they just got their asses handed to them against their bitter rivals on, you're celebrating Pat Riley, and he is he's technically with the Miami Heat right now, but he is bleeding purple and gold throughout the day. He ends his press conference with saying, like, go kick some Celtics ass. And you lay an absolute dud in that game. According to NBC, was the most watched NBA regular season game in 25 years. So I think that's been a big reason why a lot of the topics lately have been how bad the Lakers are and how bad Luka is. And it's like that game really stayed in a lot of people's minds, and a lot of people watched that game. And then you have the Orlando game, and just another, like, Orlando was a similar situation to Phoenix, where Orlando's without 2 of their 3 best players, and the Lakers collapse at the end of that game. And you have just the miscommunication there between Luka and LeBron and whatever happened there. And then tonight, like, again, Lakers, JJ noted after the game that he was happy with how they responded to the adversity of being down 12 with 6 minutes left. I agree. And I think it's worth noting, like, Marcus Smart, valiant effort there. Jake LaRavia, big offensive putback, some big defensive stops. And Luka got hot, hit a couple threes, had the and one. Austin hit a big 3. LeBron had a big putback, also had that drive in transition earlier in the quarter. So, like, those guys all everyone made some plays down the stretch. Everyone also screwed up down the stretch. It had some defensive miscues there, but it was just like, that's not the standard that this team should be held to. Or like, congrats, you didn't lose by double figures to the Suns without their 2 best players. Like, I think at this point in the season, we're 60 games in, like, there needs to be higher standards here. And I think that's on everybody. Like, I will continue to harp on, I think the biggest issue with this group is the roster. I think it starts at the top with the way this roster was constructed, the lack of aggression last summer, the lack of aggression at this trade deadline. So we can criticize JJ, we can criticize the big 3, we can criticize the supporting cast, but I think it all starts with how this group was assembled, and they're just not good enough. There's really no way around it. Like, they're just not good enough. They have the entire rotation is basically one-way players. It puts JJ in a really difficult position to try to find the right chemistry and the right balance every single night, because even like the lineups don't always translate the same way game to game. That there's a lack of reliability and consistency there. Then you have the real limitations with the big three, both offensively in terms of just how they fit together, but then especially defensively with just your floor is so low if those are three of your five defenders. And then you add in Deandre Ayton on top of that, and the way he's jogging up the court basically every possession. And you see how that group gets killed defensively. But I come back to the roster as the biggest thing, but I do think we're getting to the point of the season where I think there needs to be some more accountability for the coaching staff, and both for their performance, but also for them holding guys accountable. And I think like no one should be safe in the rotation. I know the big three are going to be safe just based on their status and where they're at in the hierarchy. Outside of those three, and even those three, I think can have their feet held to the fire to a degree at times. Outside of those three guys, like everybody else, there should be no leeway. There should be no, like, if someone is not performing well, if someone is not rotating, boxing out, defending, getting out in transition, getting back in transition, moving the ball, making the right reads, like there needs to be a quick plug for everybody moving forward, I think. And I will give JJ some credit for, he did try to extend the Luka AR bench groups and also extend the LeBron led bench groups. And I think that's the way that this has to go, is the big three are going to play some amount together, some non-insignificant amount. They're going to play, 15 to 20 minutes basically every game. You just have to make the best of that. But outside of that, it needs to be as much Luka and Austin together and then as much LeBron by himself. And I think you do that, you get into a good place, or a better place. We'll see. We'll see about good place. And then, the supporting cast, I think everyone, like most of the role players are, I think, trying, right? There are some exceptions. I would point to DeAndre Ayton as a glaring exception, but we'll get to him a little bit later. Otherwise, Luke Kennard's defensive limited, but like Jackson, Jake, Vando only played 6 minutes. Marcus, I think these guys are largely trying. Doesn't mean they're going to play mistake-free basketball. They are still each individually limited to a degree, right? And I think they're all better suited for bench roles and smaller roles, but that's just not, again, the makeup of this roster. And then with the big three, I think all three could be better defensively. And right now, outside of Luka, no one is in a good offensive groove. And Luka had obviously had the Boston and Orlando performances where, from at least an efficiency perspective, he was not there from a scoring perspective. But LeBron has not been the same for several weeks now offensively, and outside of like the Dallas game, and then Austin outside of the Philly game has not been the same since returning from injury. So the Lakers are just in a tough spot right now. Like they're looking like a team to be like, I don't know how else to say it other than like they're looking like a team that's probably going to get their ass kicked in round one. Like I think the most likely scenario, again, depends on the matchup. And I think they have a better chance than a lot of people do against Houston if those two teams were going to match up. But they're looking like a team that's probably losing in 4 or 5 in round one. And that, again, should be the standards should be higher with this group. But they just look disjointed right now. They're not playing good basketball. And even if they had found a way to win tonight, it would have it would have been technically a win in the standings. And at this point, like everyone matters, but would have almost felt like a loss had they won this game, just with how the game went. And the back-breaking plays that, I thought one play that Dan Wojcicki brought up in the post-game press conference, and I think he tweeted about it, or not brought up, but they give up a 3, and then they Vando inbounds the ball and turns it over, and they immediately hit another 3. And it's like just these bang bang sequences that Phoenix has done to the Lakers multiple times this season. This reminded me of the game that the Lakers lost earlier in the season back in December against them in Phoenix. That was another, I think that was their first clutch loss of the season, but just too unserious, too unfocused, not together enough. And that's just been the state of the Lakers recently. Nothing else to really say on this team or this game right now. In terms of notable performer, well, we have more to say about the game, but nothing else to say about like the overall state of the team. In terms of notable performers, we have to start with Luka Doncic. Incredible offensive performance from Luka: 41 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, just 3 turnovers, 12 of 21 shooting, 6 for 11 on threes, 11 for 12 at the free throw line. He was efficient in all 3 areas of scoring in terms of field goal percentage overall, but 2-point percentage, 3-point percentage, free throw percentage, all that. Only had 3 turnovers. I think a brilliant offensive performance from Luka. Defensively, so he tweaked his back at some point in the game, and then I believe it was Ryan Dunn who jumped on his back. He had one play where he did drove, did an up fake, and I think it was Dunn who went up to contest, and then might have been. I think it was Dunn, and he jumped on his back, and then Luka's back was further aggravated. So he was pretty physically limited, over the final 18 minutes of this game. And I thought you really saw it on the defensive end because he still hit some big shots. He was still able to attack in the post. Lakers did a good job of attacking Colin Gillespie, Grayson Allen, or targeting Iguodaro on switches. But Luka still made some big plays out of the post, hitting some threes, playmaking, but defensively, he was clearly hobbled and unable to rotate. And I thought Phoenix did a really good job of just picking on him relentlessly in the fourth quarter. And their entire offense basically became, where's Luka? Let's bring him into the screen. And I mean, they were hitting some insane shots. Like Phoenix certainly had a magnet ball tonight. But I also look at the Lakers and the botched switches. I look at their bigs being in drop when it's like Colin Gillespie has hit multiple threes. Why are you in drop coverage, letting him step into threes? Same thing with Grayson Allen. So certainly Phoenix hit a slew of ridiculous shots tonight, especially in that third quarter, but even into the middle of the fourth. But I also just look at the Lakers and they're an unserious defense, especially when they're primarily playing man-to-man defense. But yeah, Luka had a tough go of it, I would say, especially in that fourth defensively. But he carried the offense tonight. No one else had more than 15 points. He was efficient. So I know that's a talking point because right now there's been a lot of discourse around Luka, but I'm not putting this loss on Luka. 41, 8 and 8, 2 steals. I think if you were JJ, maybe that final defense possession, that's something I'm going to touch on with one of my takeaways is you could have gone away from him because there was a breakdown there and LeBron and Luka ended up colliding and Royce O'Neal cashed that 3. And even if he had, missed that 3, there would have potentially been an offensive rebound opportunity with 2 Lakers out of the fray. But, I'm not putting that. I think there was bigger problems tonight than Luka's defense down the stretch, especially with how much he scored and contributed offensively. Then we get to LeBron, who 15 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, only 1 turnover, 7 for 16 shooting, 0 for 3 on threes. So the jumper is just not there, and it just has not been there. I thought defensively, he had a rough go of it too, in terms of his help rotations, low man rotations tonight. But he did have the big putback late, and he had some really big, I think he had 8 of his 15 points in the third quarter and was playing some bully ball, getting out transition, having some deep seal post-ups and finishes, So that was nice to see, but just an odd game from the big 3 in terms of definitely more efficient tonight, but it just, again, I guess they combined for 72 points, 41 of which came from Luka, but they just are not on the same page offensively. And that has been very clear. We get to Austin, who missed the game tying shot, 14 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 5 for 12 shooting, 2 for 5 on threes, 2 for 2 at the free throw line. So another thing was LeBron and Austin not getting to the free throw line as much as they felt they should have, but also, the Lakers probably needed. But yeah, Austin, hit the big 3 to tie it at 108, gets a good look, misses it. He was also someone who they attacked at times defensively, but he just has not been the same player. And I thought, he had 4 turnovers to 2 assists. I talk about it all the time, especially if you're a primary ball handler or even secondary ball handler. In general, you never want as many turnovers as assists. It's a little bit more understandable if you're like a big man and you have 1 turnover and 1 assist, or even 2 turnovers, 2 assists. That's going to happen because you're not passing the ball as much. You're not in playmaking positions as much. But for Austin, he's not been the same playmaker since returning. He has not had the same usage. He has not had the same role. And tonight, I thought he really struggled with the ball pressure from Gillespie and Allen and Bouye. And this has been a team that has given him some fits this season. And now, we've seen it now multiple games in a row, multiple games in this stretch here of OKC and Boston and Orlando and Phoenix. And he continues to struggle with these tests and is not passing them, and that is concerning. Then we get to Marcus Smart. I think he deserves a huge shout out. Like, had a relatively quiet first, I think like 2.5 quarters or so offensively, but made big play after big play. Was attacking out of the post. Had a couple and ones. Hit a couple big threes. Hit the big 3 late in the third to right before the end of the third to tie it going into the fourth quarter. Hit another big 3 in the fourth and had the big block on Ryan Dunn, contested him at the rim. That could have easily been a foul, but could have been called a foul. I don't think it was a foul, but like those bang sequences, especially when it's like a bigger player going up against a smaller player, sometimes in the moment they'll call it a foul. Lakers didn't have any challenges remaining, so they would have just had to live with that. And Marcus gets the stop there. I thought his defense down the stretch, like he was the one guy who was playing with force and energy and had a sense of urgency consistently throughout the game. That's just how Marcus is wired. You got to channel it properly, but I thought he channeled it well tonight. 4 for 8 shooting, only a couple turnovers, good stuff from Marcus. Then DA, we will hold that one for one of my takeaways, but I will say this. Deandre Ayton tonight, 2 points, 4 rebounds, 0 blocks. Clint Capela tonight as a backup center on the Houston Rockets, 4 points, 6 rebounds, 4 blocks. So Deandre Ayton indeed was not Clint Capela tonight because Clint Capela had a better game. Off the bench, Jake LaRavia, I thought, made some big plays down the stretch as well. Had a couple key stops and 11 points, 5 rebounds, an assist, a steal, a block. Had the big putback after LeBron. Like, one thing with LeBron he was 7 for 16, 0 for 3 on 3. So he was 7 for 13 inside the arc, but he missed a few layups tonight, uncharacteristically. And one of those Jake put back in. Then Jackson, I thought, was the Lakers' best center tonight, as he's been for the past 2 months. 6 points, 8 rebounds, plus 16. Lakers were plus 16 with Jackson on the floor, minus 24 with DA on the floor, and they played 44 of the 48 minutes. So there was a big distinction there in terms of which lineups performed better tonight. Of note also, I will say the big 3 actually were all positives tonight. The Lakers are plus 5 with LeBron, plus 9 with Luka, plus 9 with Austin. So that was an encouraging thing to see, I guess. Like, the starting group got killed in the beginning of the first quarter, and they just never recovered, DA and Marcus never recovered in the plus minus column. But Jackson, I thought, played well, especially matched up against Iguodaro. Then Luke Kennard provided a real spark. He's providing more of a spark inside the arc than outside the arc. Went 0 for 1 on his threes tonight. Had a pretty good look there and missed it, but continues to be a weapon, pushing in transition, attacking from the weak side, and really leveraging how teams guard him against him. And I think one thing that other Lakers role players can learn from Luke Kennard is meeting force with force. And it's like, people aren't going to guard Jake LaRavia or Marcus Smart or Jared Vanderbilt the same way that they guard Luke Kennard, obviously. But Luke is like, if you're going to pressure me and you're going to be in my jersey and you're going to be top blocking me, like, I'm going to use that against you, and I'm going to punch back. And there's just something with his attack that I really like, and I think the rest of the group could learn from and emulate. Continues to be a guy that teams will target defensively, but I just think he's been a useful player and is a much better player than Jared Vanderbilt. I mean, not Jared. I was looking at Jared Vanderbilt. Much better player than Gabe Vincent. Speaking of Jared Vanderbilt, I've been talking about it. Like, he's been kind of getting phased out of the rotation. And as we have a larger sample size, I think he's clearly the 10th guy in JJ's rotation. He was out there for some rough stretches. The Lakers were minus 15 in his 6 minutes. I believe that was all in one stretch. JJ talked about at times that, like, sometimes a guy will get squeezed because he was part of the wrong lineup, and that seemed to happen with Vando tonight. But I thought they could have used his athleticism and defense, and he played well against the Suns. Remember going back to the big game that they had against the Suns that they pulled out in the clutch. I think Vando should have played more tonight, and then Maxi Kleber set a great screen for Austin in his 0.9 seconds that he played, but was not enough. In terms of stat of the night, 22 for 50 on threes from the Suns, 44%. 22 threes are the second most the Lakers have allowed this season, behind only 24 from Boston just 2 games ago. So again, Lakers 3-point defense is trending in the wrong direction here, and their inability to contain quick teams that can move the ball, get you in the blender, play the driving kick game. That's a real weakness of their defense. They have many defensive weaknesses, but that might be the biggest one. And then takeaway number 1 is Deandre Ayton isn't Clint Capela. So let's get into the Deandre Ayton topic. So ESPN does a nice story on Deandre Ayton today, and as a former beat writer and someone who has done these types of stories where you do a mini profile on a player, like typically, especially as someone who covers the team, who's traveling on the road, who's in the locker room every day, like, it's supposed to be a positive story. Like, it's not a puff piece. And I think, to Dave's credit, like, he did provide both sides of the coin with DeAndre Ayton, and talked to a scout and got some commentary from the scout, and was also sort of, referencing different things, like the infamous time he missed the game in Portland because the roads were too icy and he didn't feel comfortable leaving his house. And like there's the whole Crunk Cup thing that the Lakers, I mean, like, they've done the Lion shirts, they've done the Crunk Cup for DA. It's like they've been trying to make him feel good. They've been trying to empower him. But the big thing that came out of the story was something DA said after the Magic game in the locker room, that they're trying to make me Clint Capela, and I'm not Clint Capela. I'm paraphrasing here. And I agree with him. He is not Clint Capela, because prime Clint Capela is better than this version of DeAndre Ayton. I think there was a time earlier in his career, if we go back to when they made the finals in 2021 and around that time, where it's fair to argue that version of DeAndre Ayton was maybe better than the best version of Clint Capela. But if you go back to prime Clint Capela days, he was a better lob threat. He was a better rebounder. He was a better rim protector and overall defender. And he was a higher motor player than this version of DeAndre Ayton and the version of him we've seen the last few years. So the Lakers would love to have Clint Capela or prime Clint Capela at center. That's like the perfect player to pair with Luka Doncic, maybe like perfect non-star center to pair with Luka Doncic is Clint Capela. You saw how he thrived in Houston with James Harden, who is one of the closest analogs to Luka Doncic with his style of play. And then also how he thrived in Atlanta with Trae Young. And Clint Capela did the dirty work, and he still does the dirty work. And I mentioned it earlier. He had a better game tonight than DeAndre Ayton. And that's the part of this that is so frustrating with DeAndre. Like, he just can come off as tone deaf. There's really no other way to spin it. Like this, like, he had a nice game against Orlando, even though I thought he was rough defensively and was a big part of their offensive rebounding and paint success. But then follows, like, if I were him and I saw the story come out and the fan reaction to it and everyone's trolling him and lighting him up all day, you can't come out and have 2 points and 4 rebounds. And I actually think that's like overselling his impact tonight. I thought he was atrocious defensively. I mean, he got benched again in the fourth quarter, didn't close the game. Jackson closed over him. Then they ended up going small. But I mean, he got dominated in the head-to-head minutes by Mark Williams. He's pushing him around left and right. He's grabbing offensive rebounds. He's finishing over him. Like, he got absolutely killed tonight. And it's just like, it really, the last couple of games are the tale of Deandre Ayton's career up to this point. And I mean, the Lakers would love the prime version of Clint Capela. If the Lakers had the Houston version of Clint Capela, I would feel much better about them in their ability to win a playoff series and go further in the playoffs. He's a much better fit, and again, also a better player than this version of DA, the version of him we've seen this season. But I also have a real issue with, I see some of the discourse out there that's like, well, what were people expecting if he wasn't going to be getting the ball? And like, he obviously was promised a certain amount of touches, I was there for his intro press conference. I was there for media day. I was there in the preseason. I was there in the beginning of the season. I've basically been at every single home game this season and was there for most of the preseason. Anytime he spoke after a game, anytime he was in front of a microphone, it was always talking about defense and rebounding and doing the dirty work. And even go back, I encourage people to go back and watch his intro press conference if you forgot about it. He talked about not caring about his touches, not caring about scoring at all, just like knowing he's going to be a lob threat, knowing he's going to be screening and rolling with Luka. And to his credit, he has been the third highest screener in terms of volume and is fourth in screen assists. But there's far more to it than that. And I would also argue, like, the screening part of it is to try to get himself open, right? And to try and create opportunities for himself. But the rebounding has slipped lately. The defense has been flat out, I think, just between bad and terrible lately. And it's just been really problematic. And you've seen progressively since late December, he's being phased out. His minutes are no longer consistently above 30. He's no longer consistently closing games. Even when Jackson Hayes has been out, they've gone to either Maxi Kleba or small ball to close games. It's just like, it's tough to say he's been a disappointment based on his overall production and the contract, but for what the Lakers need and the thinking that like he was going to outperform the contract by some like large amount, and with the way he did the first like 6 weeks of the season, the last couple of months have been really disappointing. And I don't think he should have said what he said. And again, I just think straight up Clint Capela's a better player. Not this version of Clint Capela, but Houston and Atlanta, the OG Houston and Atlanta, Clint Capela is just a straight up better player and would help the Lakers a lot more. Then takeaway number 2, I have a couple of bones to pick with the late game lineups. And I don't often criticize the late game lineups, but one thing I have noticed, and I've noticed some fans being critical of this, has been JJ sort of, he typically, like he will do some situational subs. Like tonight, he subbed in Maxi to set the back screen for Austin. And if it's a free throw situation, he'll sub in the best free throw shooters. But I think he typically closes a game with a lineup and doesn't really change it unless someone fouls out or like there's like a real reason to change it. But I thought tonight, closing, like the Lakers have the final defensive possession, and closing with the big three and Smart in LaRavia, I just think was a mistake. The alternatives were not great, but I think for me, I would have put Jackson and Vando, and maybe you could have even dusted off. Like I can understand not dusting off Maxi just because he did not play for the entire game, although he did get dusted off to set the final screen. But I would have kept Smart and LaRavia out there. I would have put Vando and Hayes out there, and then you could have sold me on LeBron just from a switching perspective across multiple positions. Maybe if you wanted a quicker guy, you could have put Austin out there, I guess. But I think Luka in his physical state, and again, I think more so that had to do with whatever shot he took in the back and him constantly wincing and just not really being able to move. I thought it was a mistake keeping him out there for that possession. Now, the Lakers still had a timeout left, so you get the stop, and then you call timeout, and then you bring Luka back in. And then for the final possession, I think Luke Kennard should have been out there, and it's tough to say so if you look at the play that they ran a double stagger for almost was like an elevators play, but not quite for Austin. Also because of the route that Grayson Allen took to like, if he tried to go in the middle, I think LeBron and Maxey would have closed the elevators on him, but he tried to go around it. They run the play for Austin. That is a tough angle to run for Luke as a left-handed shooter, going to the right corner that way and catching that pass, having to turn and shoot it. So I guess I get that. Austin is a 41% catch and shoot guy on the season, but I would have liked to have seen, like, you got Luke Kennard for possessions like that, and even running the play for Luke Kennard, if Luke Kennard misses that, he misses it. But I don't know. I think Luka should have been out there. Luka was a decoy. And then Maxey and LeBron with a screener. So I mean, maybe you have Austin inbounding the ball and Luke is in the Austin role, or maybe you have Luke at least. I don't know. Marcus. It was a good pass from Marcus, and Marcus had some nice passes tonight, including a nice back cut to Austin. Or Austin had a back cut against Grayson Allen. But I felt you have a 50% 3-point shooter. He should probably be out there, even if he's only, maybe he's in the LeBron role setting the screen. I don't know. But I think the bigger picture with all this is I think right now there is an element of the big three and like protecting them. And I get it to an extent, but I think the Lakers need to prioritize what's best for the team, what's best for a given lineup, what's best for a given situation. And if you pull Luka for a defensive possession, or you pull LeBron for an offensive 3-point shooting possession, I don't think that's, or you didn't have to put Maxey in there, although Maxey set a really good screen. So it's like that one I like quibble with a little bit less than the defensive one. I just feel like if you have a 50% 3-point shooter and you need a 3, it feels a little bit like that guy should be out there, right? I hope I'm not overthinking that. And then takeaway number 3 is there just might not be a good starting group. The starting group tonight was -8 in its first shift, and I don't know shift. The second shift I think was much better. I'm pulling it up here. They went. Let's see when the first sub was. They went, they didn't sub till 5, and they're up 12. So they actually went +4 in about, at least the first 2 shifts. I don't think they played again off the top of my head. I'll have to look at the NBA.com lineup data later. But they played 5 minutes in the first quarter, and then they played 7 minutes in the third quarter. So that's 12 minutes. So they were +4 in the 12 minutes. I didn't love it, especially that first quarter. They just came out so lackadaisical. And you just look at the overall starting groups on the season. You have the group of death, which is after the Orlando game, it now has a -23 net rating. That's the original starting group: DA, LeBron, Rui, Luka, Austin. That group, punt it, kick it to the sun, kick it to outer space, kick it into a black hole, never have it come out again. I never want to see that lineup again, ever in any notable minute. But even looking at like the group that they had without Austin, so the group of Luka, Marcus, Jake, LeBron, DA, that group has a -5 net rating on the season. This group had a +2 net rating going into tonight. Maybe that's a little bit higher now with going +4 in 12 minutes. Though again, I don't remember. They might have played like one more shift that I'm forgetting. Maybe in the fourth. But yeah, I don't know. Just the Lakers cannot start games well. It doesn't really matter who's out there. The one group that has played well all season was the group with Marcus, Rui, Luka, Austin, and DA. That group, I think, could play more in general, but is not going to be starting. But the Lakers just have a real challenge on their hands in terms of figuring out a starting group. And this is why, I floated out there. I think it might be time to consider just starting Jackson Hayes with the way that he's been playing in comparison with Deandre Ayton, because I think similarly to the limitations with LeBron, Luka, and Rui, I think there are similar limitations to Luka, LeBron, and DA. And with the way that DA has been playing, I think the Lakers should at least consider at least consider that. I don't think it's going to happen because I think you really risk, run the risk of just losing him entirely. But I think at some point you have to make some of those tough decisions. I don't think, like, we could also discuss, do they break up the big three? Do they bring one off the bench? I don't see that happening. You're not going to bench LeBron. You're not going to bench Austin. That's just not, I think, realistic. So if Marcus, like with Luka and Austin and like different pairings, Marcus has fared well. I think Marcus is going to continue to start, but I would take a long look at the center spot. But with all that said, let's get into the Super Chats. Q&A and Super Chats. Appreciate you guys. See, we got a lot of questions already. Let's get into it. First one from the notorious CRG. I always support my Lakers, but I give up this season. I know that the sentiment is out there right now, and this is not good for my show and for my business, but if that's how you guys feel, like I support it. I get it, right? Life is short. Your time is important. And I really hope that you will still listen to Buha's block and listen to my post-game shows and catch up on the game, through that. But if you give up on the season, I don't blame you. Like, I will say, I was just talking about this with someone earlier. I started covering the Lakers 2020, 2021. That was my first season on the beat. This is easily my second least favorite season behind the 2021-22 season. That was a season from hell. That was the Russ season. That was the over half the roster was out of the NBA by the next offseason season. That was a brutal season. That was a terrible season. Outside of that, this is not like a 1A situation, but a clear number 2, right? Like last year was you had the novelty with the DFS trade, then ultimately the Luka trade, and it was a disappointing end to the season, but it was like new beginning, a lot of optimism and excitement with Luka there. Previous season, that one's probably my third least favorite. That was the 2024 season where they lost to Denver in round 1. 2023 was fun, like terrible beginning of the season. That's Pat Bev and Russ and that group, but they have the big turnaround, make the conference finals, and then the title defense season was up there for one of my favorite seasons. Just also lost in round 1, but LeBron was having an MVP caliber year. AD was awesome. I think they would have gone further if not for AD's injury against Phoenix. But I get it. I totally get it. And NBA Enjoyer, thank you for the super chat. Nothing been the same since the Ayton carb cookout. Nothing was the same. No. I mean, you might be onto something. You might be onto something. I will take a little bit of credit here, or blame rather, because for those of you who follow me on social media, you'll see my social clips, and I feel like there's been a Buha's block curse going around where I'll have some positive, like I have a positive Rui video, then Rui just disappears. I have a positive Austin video, then Austin starts struggling. I have a positive, just whatever I talk about positively and put out in a social clip, all of a sudden the next few games, that thing goes away. And after the Dallas game, I was like, the Lakers went to the break on a high note. Things are trending in the right direction. And you still had like a little bit of the positivity from like the close OKC loss and them playing them better. And then things have gone off the rails since then. So you can blame me, or you could blame the Lakers' general inconsistency. I choose to blame that. The Lakers, thank you for the super chat. To change the subject, favorite previous role player. Overall, I mean, I grew up on the Kobe Shaq Lakers, so I think that group of Rick Fox, Robert Horry, Derek Fisher will always be special for me. If you want to throw out some random guys, Devin George, Slava Medvedenko, T. Lue, Samaki Walker. There's some names from the early 2000s that will always hold a special place for me. I kind of look at it in like eras, right? So that next era, love the bench mob with Farmar and Vujicic and Shannon Brown. Still remember the Shannon Brown block in his debut. Josh Powell, and I mean I loved Andrew Bynum. I don't know where he falls in terms of like, I mean, he made an all-star game. So is he a role player? Like where do you put Bynum? Then I would say among like the recent era, KCP, Caruso, but not to rub salt on the wound, but those would be two of my favorite guys over the last like 5-6 years. Trying to think of anybody else. I mean, it depends how you feel about Austin. Is Austin a role player? Then, Austin would be up there too. But, I mean, there's been like random guys. Like I really clicked with Trey Jemison last year. I clicked with Troy Brown, Stanley Johnson. Like there's been the random guys through the years that I've, Juan Toscano Anderson, like guys I've built a rapport with. But those would be some of the guys through the years. There's some positivity for you guys. Think about the glory days of last year with Trey Jemison. Gary Singh, thank you for the super chat. Don't understand why JJ didn't use defensive lineup on last possession. He had timeout remaining to put offensive players in after. AR not worth the max. Gary is I like Gary's super chats because he will throw in multiple points in there and give me a lot to chew on here. I agree. I mean, that was one of my takeaways. I did not see this before you even submitted it. I assume you submitted it before I even made my takeaway, but I did not understand that. I thought that was a mistake. And I was really surprised to see the lineup they threw out there for, because it's not like that lineup was getting some stops, but it was largely Marcus and Jake leading the way and their playmaking and chaos. And like, yes, you still had them out there, but if you could put out a lineup for like one stop, I mean, maybe you don't want to put out Jackson, although I think he had played well, but like Vando has to be out there. I'm sorry, Vando has to be out there. Like there's, again, sometimes it's very simple. It's like, you need a stop, go put Vando out there with Smart and LaRavia. You need a stop or you need a 3-pointer, go put Luke Kennard out there. Like I think we overcomplicate these things, or maybe, the coaching staff did tonight, but AR not worth the max. I mean, look, I think that's the way this is trending. I think it's going to be hard for him to ask for the max with the way he's been playing lately, and especially the way he's been playing in big games. So he's got some time here to turn that around, and the playoffs are going to be the biggest determining factor in terms of what his contract looks like, his fit with Luka. But the way he's playing, it's not looking like he's going to get the max, at least as things currently stand. Main now. Thank you for the super chat. I would say the Lakers are trending to what they actually are, a 500-ish team. They outperformed in the first half with a lot of clutch wins. This is fair. This is a fair point, and this is why I've been so on top of their net rating and point differential. Is like a lot of statistical models have actually had the Lakers as a below 500 team. They've had them as like a 39-win team, which I haven't agreed with, and they're clearly going to win more than 39 games, but they have been due for some bad luck in clutch games because they've just inherently, there's so much randomness in clutch games that, like, yes, the best teams will win more clutch games than they lose, but the Lakers have caught some big breaks in clutch games, I would say, to a degree, whether a ball bouncing their way or a free throw or whatever, that they were due for some bad luck, which I think they have had occur against the Magic and Suns now in these last couple of games. But I mean, I think they're better than this, but I think and let's see, did Minnesota beat the Clippers? So now the Lakers are 2 games back of the 5 seed officially. Technically 1 in the loss column, but Minnesota's 3 games ahead of them in the win column. So like they're in a little bit of a hole here, and I've been saying it for a few weeks now, and I think it is starting to rear its head that like I felt like they're probably the 6th best team in the West. I think it's close between them and Houston for 5, but Houston has won 3 in a row. They've won 6 of their past 10. They have the easiest remaining schedule of the top 6 teams in the West. Houston's in a pretty good spot. So even if the Lakers are better or not as much of a mess as Houston has been at times lately, I mean, Houston's got a better record. They are nearly have the same level offense, but have a much better defense, and they have a much better net rating and point differential. So Houston's in a better spot, regardless of if I'm maybe a little bit more down on them lately. But yeah, the Lakers are not a 500 team, but they're also not like a 55 win team. And I think they're trending more toward being like a 48 to 51 team, which I think is more in line with what they truly are. Then NBA Enjoyer, thank you for the super chat. I believe JJ is a good communicator, and I love him. At the same time, feels like a lack of cutthroat accountability is missing, like how Missoula coaches. I agree, and that was something I touched on a little bit earlier in my big picture takeaway. I think JJ has to start. And to his credit, I do want to give credit where credit is due, and I think he's done a much better job of holding Deandre Ayton in particular accountable. I think he's held Rui a little bit more accountable, where, moving Rui to the bench, cutting his minutes a bit. There's been games where Rui hasn't really contributed offensively, and has also struggled defensively, and his minutes have been cut a bit. So I think in general, there are some, like the big three are not really going to be held accountable. And it does seem like Marcus, Jake, and Luke have a bit more leeway, which I understand to a degree with Marcus and Jake, because they're the closest thing they have to two-way wings on the roster, and like the closest thing to guys who can get a stop and then go score offensively. Like Vando is not that, and Rui is not that. So JJ kind of like the best version of this team needs a certain amount of production and play from Marcus and Jake. And then Luke has been really good offensively, but I would like to see a little bit more accountability here, and have the stakes feel higher for the rotation, and not just be like you can kind of just show up and have a certain role, because I do think that's partly been the Lakers culture. David, thank you for the super chat. How did the chemistry get so bad? We were second seed with good chemistry just last season. I blame the front office for mismanaging the stars and poor team construction. Lakers were third, just not trying to be smart Alec, but Lakers were third last season. So, but your larger point, like they were better last season. I think they're better last season than this season. I know there are some things that point to them being better this season. I think last year's group was better. They were not as deep last season, but I think their primary lineups and rotation was overall better compared to, right? Like, I mean, Austin was playing better than he is right now. LeBron was playing better than he is right now. I think Luka's probably playing better right now. Well, I mean, the rough Boston, Orlando, like maybe it's close with Luka. Oh, excuse me, I need some water. I would say it's close with Luka, but you could maybe argue that. I would say last year's version of Jackson was better than this year's version of DA, at least like the last couple months. Rui was better last season. DFS, I think, was overall similar probably to Marcus and Jake, but definitely more impactful from probably, I guess, similar to Marcus, because Marcus has been pretty impactful from a plus minus perspective, but DFS even more so. But yeah, I mean, I think it's the roster construction. I think that is the biggest thing holding the team back right now. Peter, thank you for the super chat. Looking at the standings and assuming health, the only team that I would favor the Lakers against is the Blazers, who they may face in the play-in. Well, I think the Lakers have caught a bit of a break here in terms of Phoenix just beat them tonight, and that did like cut that gap. But with the injuries that they have with Brooks and Booker, I think Phoenix is still going to lose more than the Lakers will, and there'll probably be a bit of a gap there. Golden State is playing better, but they're still without Steph. They're without Jimmy, obviously, the rest of the way. So I think there's going to be a bit of a buffer there. And then Portland and the Clippers are just too far back. So I think the Lakers will be in the top 6, but I think more likely than not, they will be number 6, maybe best case scenario, number 5, if one of the teams above them, I think Minnesota is maybe the most likely to just crash out. But with the way things are trending, and those teams have just been better than the Lakers over the course of the season, I think those teams are going to be the top 5, and then Lakers will be 6th. But I mean, Houston is interesting to me just because I think losing Steven Adams is a huge blow to them. And now for the season, they're without Adams and Van Vliet, who are two of the higher paid salary guys on their team, are supposed to be two of their best players and play prominent roles in the rotation. So I think full strength Houston, I would take Houston over the Lakers, but Houston is decimated without two of their, let's just say, like top 7 players, maybe conservatively, top 7 or 8 players. So that's a couple big blows and at least one starter in Van Vliet. But their crunch time offense, they've had a lot of crunch time losses. It's basically just throw the ball to KD or Şengün and like have them bail them out. Now you could argue the Lakers have a lot of that too with Luka and to a lesser extent LeBron and Austin with their crunch time. And maybe it just comes down to the Rockets offense will look better against the Lakers defense, and the Rockets defense has enough to slow down the Lakers offense. So I would probably say that's like a 6 or 7 game series where I favor Houston, but I think the Lakers have a real shot to win it. Against Denver, Minnesota, San Antonio, and OKC, I would decidedly pick all 4 of those teams and potentially I think I would pick OKC to sweep them. I think San Antonio is probably 5. I think San Antonio, Denver, Minnesota are probably 5 for me. And then I would pick them over Phoenix, Golden State, and Portland. Phoenix is close though, because now Phoenix is 3-1 against them. And I feel like Phoenix kind of has their number, and just like their style of play really gives the Lakers problems. Golden State has played them well over the last couple of years, and then the Clippers have obviously played well against them. But I think I would pick them, I at least favor them ahead of the teams below them. I just think I also would not favor them against the teams above them, and what matters more is the teams above them right now. Arno De Capo, thank you for the super chat. Hear me out. We aren't winning a chip. So sit LeBron, sciatica, Luka, hamstring, AR, calf, every other game for better pick chances in a stacked draft. That would be a hilarious end to the season, but I don't see the Lakers doing that. I think they're gonna go for it. And I don't think you're not gonna get LeBron to sign off on that. You're not gonna get Luka to sign off on that. I don't think you'd get AR to sign off on that. Like Luka, I think Luka and Austin, are two of the guys that are more confident in this group in terms of their potential ability to go far and win a championship. So, I mean, those two guys, then you have LeBron at the end of his career. I mean, what if this is LeBron's final season? He's not going to go out load managing. So I understand, like, if we're talking about like the most practical and pragmatic approach to the season, it would be, you could make a case for this. Like, I mean, I would give it a little bit more time and then see where things are at in a couple of weeks. And if they're still trending in the wrong direction, then say, hey, like, let's just go get a lottery pick. And like LeBron's out, you add a lottery pick to Luka and Austin, plus whatever big moves they can make with the other 2 picks and the cap space, and then you move forward. But I don't think that's going to happen. Dub9 Raider, thank you for the super chat. At a point where JJ should legit be coaching for his job, team checked out on him. How else do you lose to the Suns team at this point in the year? I mean, it's fair criticism. I've repeatedly said I don't think JJ is going to be coaching for his job. I don't think Rob is on the hot seat, but I think both of those guys probably will be on shorter leashes than had the team not been sold to new ownership and Mark Walter and the whole Dodger situation. But the Lakers just had a memo to season ticket holders about the ticket price increase, and one of the selling points for why you should be coming to games next year was JJ Redick. Like, the Lakers are proud of finding JJ Redick. They view him as a coaching star, and still a work in progress, but someone who, I mean, they compared him to Pat Riley during the hiring process. Like, I don't see him losing his job this season or this summer. I think we're a ways away from that. So I do agree with the element of like the team is just, the vibes have not been good. And now again, I think with this group in general, there's been a little bit of like, when things are bad, they're really bad. And JJ spoke to this after the game. He's like, we have a lot of loud losses because we're both the Lakers and because of the manner in which we lose games. But So I think there's like a little bit of that, but it has felt like when this team starts to break apart, fracture, like disjoint, whatever, they do it rather quickly and easily, and it's like it's a little too natural for them, and they're not as like close knit, I think, as you. And again, like I don't think guys don't like each other, to be clear, or anything like that. It's not anything like that. I just think there's like a lack of basketball cohesion and a lack of like togetherness and like on the same pageness that I think is critical for a team with championship aspirations, and they clearly just don't have that right now. Musical K420, thank you for the super chat. LA should tank. Said before, saying it again, good draft. So tank, biggest mistake Luka made is to re-sign with LA. It was dumb. He should ask out in offseason. I mean, I don't think Luka's going to ask out, but I think along your line of logic here, and I understand it to a degree, it'd be interesting if Luka had not extended where the Lakers would be at right now and how they'd be probably freaking out. I mean, I think if Luka had not extended, I don't know if he would extend like this summer, right? I think the Lakers would be in a tough spot, but he chose to, extend, and he's in the situation now that he's currently in, and we'll see how much pressure he applies, if any, this offseason to really fast, expedite this reshaping of the roster, we will say. But again, I don't see them tanking. Enjoy the silence. Thank you for the super chat. Luka lost our 12-point lead when Braun sat down. I think some of that was Luka just was not the same again after some of the back stuff. But again, was he perfect tonight? Like, no. It was not like the best stretch, the stretch you're talking about here, but I don't think that's entirely on Luka. Like Luka, I mean, he had almost half their points tonight, and over half their points when you factor in the assists. A lot of guys. I mean, the Lakers shot 51%. They shot 38% on threes. They got to the free throw line 26 times. They made 88%. Like, actually, for the game, the Lakers had a 126 offensive rating. That's an incredible offensive rating. It was the defense. They gave up a 129 defensive rating, and but like, I mean, they were right there, same effective field goal percentage as Phoenix. They had a better true shooting percentage than Phoenix. It was really the threes, the offensive rebounds. Phoenix took 12 more shots. So remember the Orlando game? Depending on the box score, it was either 11 more shots, 12 more shots. So between the turnovers, the offensive rebounds, Phoenix had more possessions, and then they just cashed in a bunch of threes. So, like, I mean, Luka had 8 rebounds. Like, again, I'm not like I thought he was actually, he was worse in the kind of closing part of the fourth where they were able to really target him. But I'm talking about like the defensive side. But I'm not putting this on Luka. Pinty 23, thank you for the super chat. Waive Ayton and sign Chris Boucher, DA minus 24. So the issue with waiving DeAndre Ayton, because I know people had asked about this around the trade deadline. He's got the player option for next season, and that is guaranteed money. So if you waive Ayton, it wouldn't be an issue for this year's cap sheet. It would be an issue for next year's cap sheet. You're automatically putting that $8 million on the books, and you're not even getting the player. So that would be the biggest downside to potentially waiving him. Honestly, if they waived him, I would probably favor just putting Drew Timme on the team, starting Jackson, and then just going a bit smaller in general. But I don't see it happening. And Tori CRG, thank you for the super chat again. I feel like the locker room is just spiraled. I mean, that's the way it feels now. I will note, like, teams go through ebbs and flows. The Lakers are going to win again. If they somehow lose to Golden State and it's like 4 in a row, I think they will beat Sacramento and probably New Orleans. So there will be some better days ahead, but I am really concerned with LA's ability to beat good teams, and just any sort of resistance that they face. I think this team kind of crumbles under that pressure right now. And that is something I'm concerned with. And so with the big game next week against Indiana, then at the end of the week against New York, then the beginning of the following week against Minnesota, then again against Denver. It's like they got a tough slate coming up after these next few games, and it's going to be a slate, I think, that really defines their season. And unfortunately, they're playing some of their worst basketball of the season in one of the most important stretches of the season. So we'll see if they can turn things around, but I am growing increasingly concerned. Xavier, thank you for the super chat. How did Rob envision this roster being successful? Well, I'm not going to pretend to know what he thinks because I have not agreed with a lot of the decisions over the last few years. But I mean, look, like they have a 58.6% win percentage on the season, despite how many injuries they've had. That there's a version of this team or this season rather that they're healthier and maybe they have a few more wins and are actually more in that like 3 or 4 seed conversation here. I think could be a little bit more fool's gold and they would have been punching above their weight a little bit more, but certainly like that 2 to 3 more wins and we're talking about the Lakers in a different light right now. But to your point, I mean, they were banking a lot on Deandre Ayton, and I also think if Deandre Ayton maintained the production in the first 6 weeks of the season, we're talking about a potentially slightly different season. You can't foresee that Austin's going to miss as much time at the time. I mean, maybe they knew the extent of LeBron's injury and how much time he might miss, but we didn't hear about that until right before training camp started. Then Luka's obviously missed time. A bunch of guys have missed time, been in and out of the lineup. So I think he wanted to like build upon last year's identity and just fine tune some things. And it's like, all right, split DFS into Ayton and Smart and Laravia, and then you do the Gabe trade. But my issue is if you look at the teams in the West, like OKC OKC just won the title. They had a record-setting start to the season, and they have 1 million draft picks, but they still go do the Jared McCain move. They still, frankly, overpay for Jared McCain, but because they feel like he's gettable, he's a good young player, he's still on his rookie scale contract, and he fits what they need off the bench. San Antonio did the De'Aaron Fox trade around the same time Lakers did Luka trade, so like they went for it, but they also kept the Dylan Harper pick, did not look to trade it, take a swing on him. That has worked out. They figured out a way to play the 3 guards together, but also how to stagger them and play 2 of them at a time. And, they are ahead of schedule. Like I don't think even San Antonio envisioned, like you're just talking to people, like San Antonio did not envision like this. They thought they could maybe be like a play-in team, like a low-end playoff team. They did not. I mean, they're a game and a half now out of first. So not even San Antonio saw this coming. So San Antonio, I think you could have even argued like it could have been more aggressive over the summer building this team, but they wanted to like get into the playoffs. Houston, though, I mean, they do the KD trade. And I think if they had a little bit, like if Fred VanVleet had not gotten injured and they had some flexibility there, maybe they trade him or I think Houston's been pretty aggressive and they signed DFS. Denver does the Cam Johnson MPJ trade. They also do the Jonas Valanciunas acquisition. Like they clear some space to add to the roster, add to the bench. And then Minnesota does lose Na, but then they just did the IO trade. And it's like, point being, the 5 teams ahead of the Lakers have all like been going for it. They've all been trying to make moves. They've all been trying to improve the roster, and it's tough to say the same for the Lakers when you look at in my opinion, they did the bare minimum in both free agency and at the deadline. Free agency, they only used the exceptions they had. Like, yes, they got creative with the whole DFS thing, splitting it up, but they used that, and then they signed the biannual for Marcus, right? They split it between between DA and Jake, and then they used it biannual on Marcus. So they just used a couple of small exceptions to add like nice players on their contracts, but not real difference makers. And then they do the Gabe Vincent 2nd round pick swap for Luke Kennard. And it's like, okay, but like you can't say you're going for it when those teams are already better than you and they're going for it even more. So I don't know how he envisioned this roster being successful. I wish I could answer that better, but we are here now. Harry Chinani, thank you for the super chat. With Rui out, I'm glad you mentioned. I forgot to mention that at the top. I mean, I don't know how much it would have made a difference tonight, but there was no Rui tonight, so definitely down scoring and shooting for LA off the bench. But with Rui out, I'm not sure why JJ didn't play Buffkin. You sign a guy only to be a bench warmer and need to see who can make an impact going into the play-in/playoffs because these 9 to 10 players are not getting it done. That's a fair point. You also, with the way DA was playing, could have maybe played Kleba a little bit earlier, especially with like Jackson had some success with the switching. And when you're switching more, I actually like Kleba as well, just because I think he kind of fits into that. But I think they could have played Vando more. I mean, Vando should not have played only 6 minutes. They went with 8 guys tonight, basically, and no Rui, and then Vando phased out. So yeah, with Buffkin, we just don't know what the Lakers have with him because he's not really played. And they signed him to the 15th roster spot when you have the Suns signing Haywood Highsmith, who obviously was out tonight. But like, I would rather have like the theory of Haywood Highsmith on the bench than Kobe Buffkin if Kobe Buffkin's just going to collect cobwebs. Connor Phillips, thank you for the super chat. JJ needs to treat Ayton how he does Vando, if that. Yeah, or treat him like Jackson in the first round, or treat him like the entire bench in game 4. That's the part where, that's the point we're getting at right now. Easy peasy. Thank you for the super chat. LeBron should never have more shots than AR. So I don't believe in like absolutes to this degree, but I agree with the premise that I made this point. I made this point a few times. I made it, I think, a couple games ago after the Boston game, that I think Austin should be the number 2 scoring option. LeBron, and probably more of a 2A, 2B, but LeBron's more of a playmaker. Austin's more of a scorer. I think that plays into both players' strengths and is a more natural fit in terms of just like the big 3. But it has shifted recently where Austin's become more the third option. I would even argue more of like a distant third option. I feel like there's a bit of a gap there. And I would like to see that gap close. I would agree with you that for the season, he's averaged more points. He's been more efficient. He shot better than LeBron on 2s, on 3s, overall at the free throw line. Like, I think he's just been the better overall offensive player, and LA should lean more into that. Pleasers, thank you for the super chat. Let Rob cook. Sure, it's a first round exit, but he's going to fix the team this summer. Fifth time's the charm. And Luka's only 18 years old. Lots of time. I was really interested to see where the rest of this question went after the first 3 words, but it went where it should have gone. I will give you credit there. Yeah, I mean, so I have a mailbag that's coming out tomorrow for those of you who saw the prompt on YouTube. Appreciate the questions, but it'll be coming out tomorrow, probably after Lakers Collective, and I talk about my skepticism with this offseason and why I think it's probably going to be a multi-transaction cycle for LA to really get the roster that they need, because there's so many moving parts. And again, I have like a 10-minute answer, so I don't really want to spoil that. But the gist of it is basically, LA's not done a great job of rebuilding their roster in like any summer going back like multiple summers. They've tended to be very conservative and very passive in most summers. I think there will be some more urgency and pressure this summer, but there's different ways the cap space can play out. But if we just say like a blanket, there's a pathway to have like the 8 guys that are like guaranteed to be on the roster if the 2-player option guys opt in, and you rescind the rights to everyone else other than Austin. And in that scenario, you have 8 guys under contract, including Austin, for the time being on his cap hold. So 7 guys plus Austin, and then you have $57 million in cap space. But that $57 million in cap space can go like this. It can be gone. I mean, you trade for Giannis, the cap space is gone. You sign, you go, like one of the questions was about like potentially acquiring Andrew Wiggins in a trade and trading him into the cap space. Well, that's over half your cap space is gone with one player. So I think the Lakers will get a star or a high-level starter, maybe a couple high-level starters. But I think it's going to be hard for them to do more than that, and I think they're going to need more because that $57 million is based on losing LeBron and Rui. If you keep LeBron, you keep Rui, that's going to eat into that, and now you have less flexibility financially. So I think if LeBron retires or leaves, they have three starting needs at the 3, the 4, and the 5 offensively, defensively at the 5. Either forward spot, depending on where you want to put Luka, and then a point of attack, backcourt / wing type defender. So you need 3 starters this summer, and you need to add at least 6 players realistically. So how you do that with $57 million, like there's a pathway to like divvy it up maybe with like 3 $20 million players, but that's a different class of player, right? Like if you want a Hartenstein or you want a Wiggins, or like those guys are going to cost a bit more. And so like I just think the Lakers I think they're going to add 1 player, if not a couple. Can they add like 3 starters plus like 2 to 3 quality bench players? I'm skeptical of that, right? So I do think it's probably going to be multiple transaction cycles and probably be this summer, 2027 deadline, and then 2027 offseason. So going into the 2027-28 season is when things have been put together. The concern is like now you're wasting like another year of Luka and Austin together, and you're just not like maximizing this window here. So we'll see. I could easily be wrong, but I think the track record with the front office speaks for itself, and I think it's easier said than done to use that $57 million in a productive way and to hit all the needs that they have. Because I think they basically need 3 starters and like half of a new bench, and I don't know how they pull that off. Kristen Lee, thank you for the super chat, and thank you for being a member. I know the Lakers media is a lot, but why is it so loud on Luka? Example, my grandmother who only goes on Facebook for crockpot recipes asked why the Lakers don't fire this Luka guy. So the Luka hate algorithm hit the crockpot crowd. Wow. Did not expect that. So you actually asked this on the mailbag. So I did speak about this in the mailbag. So I don't want to spoil it, but you did pay to ask this. So I do appreciate that. I guess I will just summarize my point on there. I think a couple of things. So one part of this is like, I think there's like 3 things converging on, to the Luka discourse lately. One, I think some of the Luka backlash started with the finals, and remember Brian Windhorst had the rant that he went on, and there started to be some Luka backlash around that time about the defense, the conditioning, whatever. Then you have the Luka trade where Dallas immediately starts doing damage control, throwing him under the bus to reporters behind the scenes. All the Dallas side of it was, this dude's not in shape. He doesn't care. He doesn't play defense, yada, yada, the shot selection, the ego, like all the things that they were saying about Luka. So I think that kind of set a bit of a narrative around Luka. And now when you see certain things and you see him complain to the refs, you see him not defend, you see him take bad shots or whatever, then that just continues to perpetuate that narrative that has now been built around him. And I think some of it is fair. I'm not saying, like, he's obviously not an all defense guy. His shot selection and ball dominance can veer into being too ball dominant and too heliocentric. Some of the conditioning stuff or the complaining to the refs. Like I think there is some legitimacy to every complaint or criticism with him. Again, to a degree, I think it's gone overboard. I also think then there's been people digging into his personal life. I think that is completely uncalled for, ugly, like just that should not be happening. But so that's like one thing was like some of this stuff started to bubble up around 2024. Then the Luka trade happens. It rears its head again. And then now since then, Luka's basically been on trial. And I know he had like the one Jordan brand ad talking about, bad Luka, right? And he's kind of been on trial since then, fair or not. Like I would say more unfair, but it's been basically everything Luka does is now like, is it playing into the narratives around him? That's the first thing. Second thing is part of this is just what comes with being the face of the Lakers. Like Kobe dealt with the scrutiny through the years, and a lot of it self-imposed, but also just part of it being the face of the Lakers. LeBron was already dealing with it, especially once he did the decision and went to Miami. Like we've just never seen an athlete really deal with what LeBron was dealing with at that time. But I think that also continued into like LeBron and the Lakers. That marriage just kind of exploded in terms of the criticism, the scrutiny every day on First Take, every day on all the shows, all the podcasts, always talking about LeBron, always. I mean, it's cooled off recently, but it's been crazy for 7 years. And I think Luka's now the new face of the Lakers, the face of the league. Like he's dealing with this now, right? So part of it is just the Lakers, the bubble, like the Lakers bubble, the fishbowl, the magnifying glass, the spotlight. It's brighter than any other franchise, maybe in sports. I would say like the Dallas Cowboys are up there. The New York Yankees are up there. Some of the college, big college football programs, but the Lakers, especially for the NBA, they are the NBA franchise. Like they are, you can say the Celtics have the most championships. You could say the Knicks are the Mecca in New York. The Warriors have been a raving success over the last decade. The Lakers are the Lakers, and they are the global franchise of the NBA, and they get talked about even when the Lakers sucked, going back 9 years ago, they still were always like a First Take segment, and it was always something with the Lakers. So even when they suck and are irrelevant, they're always talked about. When they're good, they're always talked about. So that part of this, I also think, is Luka being the face of the Lakers. And then, so I said there was three things with it. Yes. So the final thing I think is, this is more of a sports media thing, but I think people are sort of hopping on the algorithm, I guess even in the crockpot community, where sometimes there is a hot button topic that takes on a life of its own and everybody starts to want to chime in. And especially right now, like there's not a lot to be talking about basketball wise. The trade deadline just passed. All-Star weekend is gone. The tanking stuff has kind of died down, at least for the time being. No update yet with the aspiration situation. So there's kind of been like not much to talk about the last like few days to a week. And, or like, some of that stuff was it last week, but like it started to cool down. So then people start letting it fly, and Zach Lowe, Colin Cowherd, Chris Broussard, several other people, and it's just now it's been like, I think people on ESPN now have been doing it. It's just been shots at Luka nonstop, and I think once one person has a take that goes viral or whatever, this is a competitive industry, and this is also an industry that realizes like, hey, this is a topic that will get some views. So then you start being like, well, I want to get my take out on Luka, and I want to talk about this. And then you had another, I think Bill Simmons and Max Kellerman talked about it today. So I think part of it's just like the media cycle of once a story hits a certain point in the zeitgeist, it becomes like everybody wants to chime in and sometimes give a counterpoint, be contrarian, but sometimes also that it's like, can you build upon that and make it even, a bigger point or whatever. I mean, the crazy thing to me was like Awful. I don't know if you guys saw this. Awful Announcing just talked about this situation and wrote about like the NBA media turning on Luka. So that to me, like the fact that Awful Announcing is writing about it and writing about it to that degree, that really stood out to me. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things, but again, to summarize it, I think like some of this has been building for a couple of years with Luka and like the narrative around him and the criticism around him. Some of this is just playing in LA, playing for the Lakers, the spotlight that comes with it. And then some of this is just like the media cycle and those three things converging into this hot button topic. Verbal Karate, thank you for the super chat. Only two guys outperforming their contracts, Reeves and Ayton. Quite a few guys underperforming. Redick, James, Hachimura, Vanderbilt, Kleba. They aren't losing because of fourth option. Roster can't be fixed. I would throw in Jackson Hayes here. I think Jackson Hayes has been better than a minimum level center. Ayton, So you could argue on the course of the season, he's probably outperformed his contract. I don't think that's been like, again, tonight, 2 points, 4 rebounds, terrible defense. That's not an $8 million player. And this was probably one of his worst games of the season, but I mean, objectively was one of his worst games of the season. I think he's had several performances along these lines and had a lot of games he's been benched in the fourth quarter and down the stretch. But to your point, I mean, he's certainly like, there's no denying his value on the contract. I'm not saying he's like I know some people are like, he's going to be playing in China next year. Like that's not happening. Like he's going to be on an NBA roster, whether he opts in or he opts out and signs else. Like he's going to continue to be an NBA player. I just think he's miscast as a starter and as like a high minute guy on a team that has contending aspirations. He just is too inconsistent, too low motor, wants the ball too much, quite frankly. And just, it's not the right situation, not the right team. Maybe there's a team that I'm not thinking of. But if you look at like pretty much every contender has a really good starting center that I think is better than him. So, but I mean, I don't disagree. I mean, LeBron has obviously not been a $53 million player. Rui's not been an $18 million player. Vando's not been an $11 million player. Kleba's not been an $11 million player. I think Smart, I would throw in Smart and Laravia. Like Laravia is probably at his value. I think Smart's making $5 million. Smart's been a better player than a $5 million player this year. That's probably it, though. I would throw in Smart and Hayes into this conversation, and then Luka. It's just tough to quantify. Like it's tough to quantify what you can pay a player of that caliber. So I think Luka, of course, is worth his deal. But not saying. So I think it's interesting here that the offensive end, because that's actually not where I'm most critical of DA. Like, yes, he is declined as a finisher lately, and he's been missing. I mean, the funny thing is, like, if you go back and look at his highlights against the Orlando Magic, he looks like Clint Capela because he had, I think he had 3 or 4 lob dunks. He had a couple putbacks. He had a couple dump off passes for dunks. It was basically all dunks and point blank layups, and had a couple of nice turnaround deep seal post ups, which Clint Capela could do for the record back in his prime. But like, it was pretty much all around the basket stuff and all dependent on someone setting him up, which is exactly the role that Clint Capela had in Houston and Atlanta. So I found that ironic, but I'm actually not blaming DA for that. I'm blaming DA for the defense. And I think if you're not seeing what I'm seeing, I would recommend going back and rewatching the game. But anytime he's getting switched onto these guys, or anytime he's trying to corral someone in drop coverage, they are just splashing jumpers in his face or driving right past him for layups. Or Mark Williams is moving him out of the way for offensive rebounds and scoring over him. Like the defense was really bad tonight. I thought it was bad against Orlando. I thought it was also bad against Boston. So I think that's more of my issue, is like, just being a starting center, you need a certain baseline defensively. And I think he's been far below that. So screw the points, screw even the rebounds. Like, he needs a floor defensively that I think he's been below lately. Following that up, Reeves Strongest Soldier, thank you for the super chat. Genuinely baffling how dog shit Ayton is right now, LMAO. I mean, you said it, not me. But I mean, yeah, if we look at, so through the first, I think there's like kind of a drop off around. Well, let's just start with the Houston game at Christmas. So up to that point, we're 2 months into the season, he had 4 single digit games, and 2 of those games were because he exited early. There was the game against Utah that he exited early, and the game against Memphis. So I don't even count those as like full strength single digit games. Then they got blown out by OKC and Boston. So he played fewer minutes. So he scored in double figures. Lakers could barely dribble or pass in either one of those games. So, okay, that's not on him. From that point though, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games in single digits. And skimming through these, The Denver game, he left early. So we'll say that knocks one off. And then otherwise it's been just, I mean, yeah, Lakers get blown out in some of these games, and some of these games his minutes have been slashed, but like it's more than like quadrupled his output from the previous 2 months. So, I mean, and it's basically a perfect split here of like late October through late December, only a couple single digit scoring games. Then late December through late February, you're at 10. And there's a lot of factors that go into this. Like when the big three play, he's obviously less involved, but I mean, you just look at his field goal percentage, it's been on the decline. The finishing outside of the rim area has been on the decline. He basically doesn't take any mid-range jumpers anymore. So like he shot under 60% in February, and most of his shot attempts are within like 4 feet. So yeah, he's just, the rebounding has dipped. The playing time has dipped. The reliability has dipped. And yeah, I mean, he's basically been on a downward trajectory statistically since his peak in like, I would say November. Light from Mars, thank you for the super chat. No AR has been up and down lately, but feels like he's being used differently. Lots of standing in the corner and less off-ball sets after prior success, like Clips game, only 12 field goal attempts today. Thoughts? Yeah, and look, like you guys know how I feel about Austin, so I can acknowledge that he has not played well, and I can acknowledge that this is going to potentially affect his pocketbooks, but I am still firmly in the like Austin side of things in terms of like being optimistic about him and his potential, being optimistic about he and his fit with Luka. The lineup data has backed that up, and I think Austin will figure things out. But I agree. I mean, they had a bunch of off-ball stuff against the Clippers, and I really like that. And then it's just gone away. Now, I think he so one of the things people have been piling on Luka, like there was the stat from a couple or the last 2 seasons. There's been 207 players that have played, I don't know, a certain amount or whatever. And Luka has not, I think it was like not attempted a shot in the final 90 seconds or something like that, whatever. I think a big part of that is like Luka getting doubled, and like, so you could throw stuff out there and there'll be a lack of context. And like, so when Luka is in a late game situation, teams are throwing the kitchen sink at him. They're doubling him. They're trying to get the ball out of his hands, and he's setting guys up. And like, sometimes that is just the way things play out. The Lakers have also been in less crunch time situations than you would think. Like they've actually played the fewest crunch time games in the league. And a lot of their crunch time games are like I think about that New Orleans game where it's like they're close with 5 minutes left and they end up blowing out New Orleans. And it's basically, the Lakers have had a bunch of games like that against bad teams that like technically go to crunch time, or clutch time, whatever, but it's like not really clutch time. So I say all that to set the parameters here of like with Austin, I think he has not played as well lately. So I think there's been like a slight decrease in the role of not able to shake loose the same way against Boston, and I think tonight to a degree, and did find his footing in the Orlando game in the second half. But certainly it does feel like, it feels like Marcus has been a little bit more involved offensively as a ball handler. Like that's more subjective than objective, but I do feel like Marcus has been bringing the ball up more, initiating the offense more. But I mean, it's been a lot of Luka. I think LeBron has taken on a larger role, and it feels like coming out of the break, there's been more of an emphasis on, I think, like Luka's usage off the top of my head has been up. It has felt like LeBron's usage has been up. Marcus's usage has been up. Austin's usage has been down. So I think that's something that they just need to recalibrate it. I wouldn't look too much into it. I would look a little into like he did not play well in these games against more athletic, good defensive teams, but yeah, it's not enough of a sample size for it to be a concerning trend for me yet, but I think he needs to be more involved. The notorious CRG, thank you for the super chat. I will always watch you creators. I just don't think the Lakers will go anywhere this season, and I will watch highlights only when they win. Haha. Totally understandable. I get you. I appreciate you watching, supporting, doing super chats, and there's no wrong way to consume this team because they will raise your blood pressure. Ben, thank you for the super chat. Can you rationally explain why any NBA player needs a cup with a slogan on it to lock in, especially when his MO is that he's lazy? It's not normal, JB. Yeah, I mean, that's not a good look. It's just not a good look. And I think the cup plus the Lion shirts plus JJ going to bat for him the way that he did after DA was complaining about the touches, like there's just been a lot of coddling. And I think that's on, like, that's one of my bigger things. And this goes back to, and look, like certain guys, like star players get coddled all the time. And I think once you reach a certain status, like just the way the NBA works, you're going to get coddled a bit. So you could, I'm sure, apply some coddling to each of the big three in their own, form or fashion. But I think one of my biggest pet peeves has been, in general, coddling of, I think the two players that have been coddled the most the last like 3 years are DA and D'Lo. And there's this, like, I think with both very similar with both players where they have high highs that like draw you in and you see the potential and you wish they could, capsule that up and like conjure it more consistently. But then they have like their floor is nothing. Like, I mean, D'Lo's floor is 0 for 7, 0 points in the playoffs, and massive defensive liability, who's like airballing wide open threes. DA's floor is 2 points, 4 rebounds, and he gets his butt kicked by the guy that almost was his replacement, in a time machine sliding doors moment, going back to last season. So, I mean, with both guys, like there's their floor is that they're unplayable. That's their floor. They're just like, they do not do anything productive when they're at their floor. So I don't like the coddling with that. To a lesser degree, I haven't liked some, like there was the coddling with Rui about the starting group and him needing a certain role that I didn't really like. But yeah, I mean, I think, again, I think there was good intentions with the story. I think the story was meant to highlight Deandre's importance and like some of the highlights of the season. But that anecdote plus the Clint Capela one, it's not a good look. And I think it backfired. Jeffrey J. Cal, thank you for the super chat. What's your best guess on why LeBron's 3-point shooting has declined so much this season? To me, I wonder how much of it has to do with the sciatica, to be honest, because I feel like the two biggest areas to my the two biggest, well, actually, I would say that LeBron to me has slipped in 3 areas this season. It's been the 3-point shooting and like overall just his jumper. It's been the handle. His handle has not been as tight as it normally is. And like we've seen, I mean, I think about that possession against Joel Embiid where he was trying to break him off the dribble and like couldn't get past Embiid. But there's just been like, LeBron has had these uncharacteristic turnovers where he will literally just be trying to like make a move and beat someone off the dribble and dribble the ball off his foot, lose control of the ball. Like that is uncharacteristic of LeBron, even go back to last year. And then I think defensively, the lateral flexibility and mobility hasn't quite been there. So I think there are times when LeBron switches on the guys where I think like even go back to last year when he would switch on to guys, like LeBron was actually statistically a pretty good ISO defender. I don't think he's been the same caliber of defender this year. And there will always be the lapses off ball where he just takes a possession off or whatever and doesn't box out, doesn't rotate. That just I think comes with the mileage. But I think to me, I wonder how much the sciatica has really impacted him because it feels like we see in transition when he's able to get the clean running start, he's still a freight train. He can still get to the rim. He could still finish. He could still get the putbacks. I mean, him in the post has been a real weapon, but he's been a little bit more like ground bound by like his standards and a little bit more relying on the power and the force and less the athleticism. And I just feel like there hasn't been the same level of mobility with him this year. So I think, my best guess on that would be the sciatica. if you think about like a back injury, back and core are two sides of the same coin, and your core is so important to what you do as a basketball player. So I would assume that has played some role in this. I mean, that's really the only thing, because LeBron had been a plus 40% catch and shoot guy the last 2 years. Like, that had been one of the biggest developments in his game later in his career. I thought he had some really good defensive moments last year. And, I thought that he was running a lot of point guard or co-point guard with Austin before the Luka trade. So those have been the three areas I think he's really declined. And I speculate that it has to do with the sciatica. Yu-Gi-Oh! Thank you for the super chat. Ayton shouldn't be starting. One of the big three shouldn't be, but because of politics, the coach can't do whatever he needs to win, tossing away chips for feelings. So, I mean, I think like a realistic thing would be one of two things. You either go back to the OG starting group, and I guess that's Rui in for LeBron, or because that group has worked and has been one of the few Lakers like higher minute groups that's worked, or you bench Ayton for Jackson and see where that goes. But I don't think the current starting group is it. I specifically don't like the Ayton, Luka, LeBron pairing. That's going to probably be a big minute pairing for this group. I just think when those three can all fluctuate in their defensive focus, awareness, verve, and just like, energy there. And the problem is, like, there are stretches where they all turn it off. And when they all turn it off, the Lakers, I mean, they're the worst defense in the NBA at that point. So yeah, we at least have a proof of concept with Jackson that it worked last year until the playoffs, but you just need to get into the playoffs at this point and like get the best seed possible. So, but yeah, they're not benching the big three. That's just not happening. Kristen Lee, thank you for the super chat. Istok pointed out the body language is likely related to the roster being on expirings. Besides Luka, Austin, Hayes, does anyone else stay? Is it clear we can't afford? It's clear we can't afford any one-way players like Rui. So quickly, I have it right now. If the Lakers want to maximize cap space, the most realistic way to do that, I think, would be, so you're going to have Luka, Vando, Jake, Dalton. Those four are under contract. Austin, we'll say he and his cap hold, that's 5. Then you have DA and Marcus. It's out of the Lakers' control whether they exercise the player option or not. So let's just add those guys in. That would be 7. And then there's one more. I think Adu is the 8th guy there. So those are the 8 guys that 6 of those guys, 5 of those guys, I think 5 of those guys are locked in. Like Luka, Jake, Vando, Adu, and Dalton all have contracts for next season. So those 5 are on the books. Like, the Lakers have at a minimum 5 players. They're going to try to keep Austin and try to keep him on the cap hold until they do their moves, then sign him a bit later after they've done their moves, because that makes the most sense, as cap hold's $20.9 million. So I think Austin is the 6th. Then DA and Marcus are wild cards. They have player options. It's out of the Lakers' control. Right now, I think Marcus will opt out because he's making $5 million. He should make more than that. DA, I think it's close to 50-50. Depends how the rest of the season goes. Then you get to the non-guarantees of Kobe Buffkin. They have a team option, so that's on the Lakers what they want to do with that. Bronny is non-guaranteed for next year, so the Lakers could technically waive him if they don't want to pay him the 2.4 or whatever million he's owed. Then you get to, there's 5 free agents of LeBron, Rui, Jackson, Luke, and Maxey. So Maxey probably gone, probably retiring, but maybe he's back on like a minimum just because of his relationship with Luka. Then Jackson, I think, could be back on a similar minimum, 1+1, whatever. But to create the maximum cap space, you have to rescind the rights to LeBron and Rui and Luke. If you don't rescind the rights to those guys, which means you don't have the bird rights to offer them, a raise on their current salary, and you can outbid some of the other competitors, then you don't have that cap space, because LeBron's cap hold is giant. Rui's cap hold is almost 30 million. Like, this whole premise of them having cap space is built on them rescinding the rights of those guys. However, there's a chance they keep Rui. If they keep Rui, then that cuts into the cap space. If they keep LeBron, that probably cuts in the cap space. They keep Luke, maybe that cuts in the cap space. So it really depends what type of contracts those guys sign. But to your general point, I think Luka and Austin are the only two guys I have confidence in being on the roster. I will note Vando has 2 more years. I don't think people are going to be clamoring to take on Vando making like $24 million over 2 years. I think that's something the Lakers would have to attach an asset to. Jake at $6 million, I think, is a fine value. I'm sure they'll try to trade Dalton. Adu, they'll try to keep. And then DA and Marcus, it's out of their control. I think Marcus will opt out. DA, again, I think it's 50-50. So, yeah, I mean, I'm okay with some of these guys staying. I just think that they definitely need new starters. And even if you kept some of the current, like if there's a version of this team with 3, like starter A, B, and C plus Luka and Austin, and then your bench is even like Marcus and Jake and Vando and Jackson and like someone else, and like you have like a nice 11-man rotation. I'm cool with that if these guys are bench players and like playing less. If they are starting and playing 30 plus minutes, that's where we get into a trouble area. Jay Earth, thank you for the super chat. The worst 34-24 team in history by point differential. If you simulated the season 100 times, they'd be 29-29 in most runs of that sim. Then he follows up, JJ not scheming up multiple threes a game for Kennard should be a war crime. How is it possible for him to have just 1 3-point attempt in the last 2 games? You're preaching to the choir here. I do not get the Kennard usage. I do not get, he's been awesome inside the arc. He's shooting over 80% on 2-pointers as a Laker, which is great. But I mean, they did the same thing with Rui. They did not consistently scheme up stuff for Rui. So this has been going on all season. And then to your point, yeah, I mean, worst 34-24 team by point differential for sure. I think, it's just honestly, I think the thing with this team that makes them so hard to judge is like their floor is just so bad that they have a lot of close wins and a lot of blowout losses. And history suggests that you should weigh that properly in terms of like the blowout losses, but I don't think they're a 500 team, but I also don't think they're as good as their record. So, I lean more toward their record being more legit. I just think, again, they're 6th in the West, which means they're probably losing in round 1. Verbal Karate, thank you for the super chat. A lot of guys making more than DA and playing worse. DA feels like fall guy when his skill set's not being used. The good teams are getting intentional offensive production out of their C's. Where's ours? So you are going to bat for DA, and I respect it. You clearly believe in that. I mean, what I would point to is I think Trevor had tweeted this. I'm not sure if it was Trevor or someone else. I'm going to pull this up. Let's see if it was Trevor. If it wasn't, here we go. So shout out to Trevor. I'm sure some of you guys were watching his stream. So Trevor tweeted this out. DeAndre Ayton, 9 field goal attempts per game. Jared Allen, 9.4. Ivica Zubac, 10. Mark Williams, 7.4. Isaiah Hartenstein, 7. Gobert, 6.4. Vucevic in Boston, 9.4. Wendell Carter, 8.4. Edie, 8.9. Nick Claxton, 8.8. So if you're actually going by field goal attempts here, and the Lakers are not like some fast team that are generating all these extra possessions. So he's actually 3rd on this list, or 4th, excuse me, behind Allen, Zubac, and Vucevic. So I think Zubac statistically was one of the best post scorers last year. I think he's just a straight up better player, but also based on the Clippers offense, I mean, it was Kawhi, Harden, and then a drop off to Zubac as like the number 3 guy. And that was before the Mathurin trade. Vucevic is in a bench role, but he's in a scoring bench role in Boston. And then Jared Allen, I guess kind of a similar role to Ayton in terms of being a screener and roller in Cleveland. But I mean, to the point of his offensive involvement, he's more involved than Mark Williams, Isaiah Hartenstein, Rudy Gobert, and then we get into some of the guys on like lesser teams like Carter, Edie, and Claxton. But I actually think DeAndre's had a pretty involved offensive role. He's averaging 13 points per game. I think he's been involved. I think the fact of the matter is, like, there was never going to be a center that was going to come in here or a player that was going to come in here unless you were like really close to Austin as an overall player or scorer. There was going to be a big gap between the number 3 option and the number 4 option. And I don't know where the miscommunication happened. I don't know if could have been the Lakers selling DeAndre Ayton on a role that was just never realistic, or it could have been DeAndre Ayton buying into a role that he never really wanted to buy into. But I think his usage and role has been pretty close to where it should be. Again, comparing him to other players of look at Isaiah Hartenstein and Gobert and what they're doing in OKC and Minnesota. Like, it's very similar. I mean, there's no Jokic here, but of course Jokic is Jokic. It's a different beast. But Ayton is. I think several of these guys are. I would rather have Jared Allen than DeAndre Ayton. I'd rather have Zubats. I'd rather have Mark Williams. I'd rather have Hartenstein. I'd rather have Gobert. I would take Ayton over Vucevic. We saw what Carter just did. I would take Carter over him. Edie long term, I would take over him. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. That's a little close, and I would take Claxton over him. So I would also argue like Ayton's close to the bottom of this list, but is right up there as like the 3rd or 4th most involved center, depending on where you want to put in Vucevic in that sample size. So if your point is like run DeAndre Ayton post ups, I don't think that's a great style of offense. I also would argue he's been really bad at posting up small players until the Orlando game. Like, he loses position, he gets pushed off his spot, he bricks those. He's been missing a lot of the mismatch possessions lately. So I will disagree. Like, I will know it. I like them getting him involved against Orlando. And like it changes the way that teams defend the Lakers when Ayton is able to get involved. But that is a lot of still lobs and like dump off passes. It's not here, DeAndre, ISO or post up. Or if it's a post up, it's a very quick post up against a mismatch. So I think he's been pretty involved though overall. Next one from Hamza. Can Luka ever play off ball just a few minutes a game? They've gone through stretches where Luka plays more off ball, and like they have the chase 77 action. They have some of those wide pin downs that they run. They just don't run it consistently enough. And I think part of that's on Luka, part of that's on the coaching staff. But yeah, I think they could do a better job of even having like, sometimes Austin will benefit from like a Luka pick and roll on one side, and then the ball gets kicked out to Austin, and then the defense is scrambling and having to deal with Austin with an advantage. If you do that with Luka too, Luka has more gravity than Austin, so maybe they won't even help off Luka, but then that gives you an advantage in your initial pick and roll. So I think he could be used more off the ball as both a decoy and actually using him off the ball to get into post up and weak side pick and roll situations, or him coming off of pin downs. Mr. Snoopy Cube, thank you for the super chat. Record before and after Rich Paul comments killed the vibes. So when was the Rich Paul? I know it was early December. I'm curious about this because to your point, I mean, they had the fall off in, looks like it was around December 9th. So December 9th, I mean, in Rich's defense, he's kind of been right. Although you could argue it shouldn't have been said. And the crazy thing was that was actually coming off of the Philly game where LeBron scored 10 in the final 12 points and iced the game, or scored 10 straight and then iced the game with the jumper. So at that time they were 17-6. Now they're 34-24. So they have gone 17-18 since Rich Paul's comments. And then if you push it back out to just the beginning of December, they are 19-20 since December 1st. So, I mean, we have almost 2/3 of the season. This group has been under 500. That is problematic. But I certainly did not help the vibes. Greyhound Gerald says, should have had 1.3 seconds instead of 0.9 SMH. Good point. And I mean, I think Austin still misses the shot, but maybe could have drawn something else up. Jay, thank you for super chat. Thought some of the best offensive moments tonight were using Braun as a big, using him in pick and roll actions with Luka. That needs to be Braun's role, in my opinion. I agree. I think LeBron in the post and LeBron playing bully ball has been the best he's looked offensively. But going back to last year, those who've been listening to my show, I've been a proponent of the Luka LeBron 2-man game. I kind of gave up on it because they just have not run it. And I've grown tired of asking for something that's just not going to happen. But when they do run it, especially against when there's like a smaller guy on Luka and you could get that switch onto LeBron, great things happen. Chuck Dangler, thank you for the super chat. Hey, Brate, got your email. We'll get back to you soon. Thanks. I hope pissed off AR means something. Referred to post game. Hope Luka can get his swag back. I did not see. Did Austin say anything post game that I missed? Because Austin refused to speak to the media after the Orlando game, which was uncharacteristic of him. But I guess in general, Austin was pissed post game. I think, we'll see. Things are in a dire spot, but I think they should get better. Sarah Talks Ball, did Allen travel on the final play? I did not notice that. I have rewatched the final play multiple times, but I will quickly look at it. I would show it. I don't want it to get flagged and be demonetized. Let's see. I don't think he traveled. No, I don't think he traveled. I could be wrong. I mean, we'll see with the last 2 minute report, but I don't think that was a travel. It would be a wild last 2 minute report if that happened. Colby, thank you for the super chat. Do players get mad at whoever writes bad stories about them? Like, will DA be pissed at McMenamin if he sees him in the locker room? Yes, they do. What often happens is the player sees the aggregation, or someone in their orbit sees the aggregation and tells them about it, and then they will get mad at you for something they think you said, or because obviously Dave did not promote this as a negative story. He did not intend for it to come off as a negative story. There were a couple negative anecdotes with the Capela and the crunk juice. But yeah, I'm sure, like, I think he's probably more mad at like Yahoo, who aggregated it, and like, some of the other accounts. But that's how it works, unfortunately, as a writer, is the players here, someone in their circle will be like, you see what McMenamin said, or you see what ESPN said. And then like, that is kind of how this tends to go. Colby is noting the travel here. Didn't pass the ball before he landed. Travel that was not called should have been Laker ball. I mean, I just looked at it. I guess, let's see. I'll Zapruder film this. Yeah, I guess that's really close. But that might have been a travel. But look, the basketball gods reward you, or they punish you. And tonight the Lakers got punished. I'm about to hit the 2-hour mark, and I got 2 more super chats. So we're going to power through these 2, and then I'm going to call it. Appreciate you guys for understanding. But I will be back in the morning with Lakers Collective. Savage Barbarin, thank you for the super chat. Since we are trying stuff, would an AR only lineup be bad like we had at the beginning of the season and just sprinkle people in and out? Just a question, chat. Don't harm me. Do not harm Savage Barbarin. Appreciate the super chat. Is that a Batman profile picture? Batman. I got a Batman right behind me. Big Batman guy. So the lineup data of the big 3 individually, Austin has been a slight negative this year. Lineups with just Austin on have been a slight negative. Now, I think part of what has colored that so far has been Austin has had several games this season where he's been the only player of the big three playing. So, like you think about like the Sacramento game, Minnesota, and there's been several games where Boston, and whatever. So I think some of those, especially the Boston game, probably really swung the Austin on off by himself. But like, I think he's had to deal with that where Luka and LeBron have typically played where, either those two have played or Austin's been the second guy. And you could find games I think everyone has played at least one game by themselves, including LeBron, but I think Austin has played the most games by himself, if I'm not mistaken. But so I would just say to that, like the Austin Luka combo has crushed it both earlier in the season before LeBron came back, but then since then, when they have played without LeBron, they've been great. LeBron has crushed it in bench lineups by himself with some of the Banshees and more defensive, bigger lineups that play zone. So I think that's probably the most natural. Like, I think the hierarchy should be, or in general, it should be LeBron with his own bench lineups, Austin and Luka together, maybe even some. I think Austin's kind of like Austin's more of the bridge between those two, where I think Austin can also fit with LeBron. They have had good two-man chemistry for several years. So you could also shift it where it's Austin and LeBron and then Luka by himself. So I would say I have the least confidence in Austin by himself of the three, but it's not a bad question. And I like talking these things out. So I appreciate you. And final one here before we wrap. Hey, Jovan, I was on Trevor's Live before the game and I said I wouldn't put it past the Lakers to lose to the Valley Suns. Sad emoji, sad emoji, sad emoji. And then the word sad. When I was thinking about it after the other night, I was like, I felt like they're probably going to lose one of these two road games, but I did think like the Warriors, with how the Warriors have been playing and how the Suns have been playing, that Golden State was more likely. But Phoenix is just a bad matchup for them in terms of like they play so hard, they generate turnovers in the backcourt with their pressure. And in many ways, they're like everything the Lakers are not. The Lakers are less than the sum of their parts. The Suns are more than the sum of their parts. And I think Jordan Ott deserves a lot of credit for his coaching. I think he's had a great game plan against the Lakers every time. I think he pushes a lot of the right buttons. I think he's gotten the better of the matchup against JJ in pretty much all these matchups. So Jordan Ott is a bright young coach. Suns are in the mix for the 6th seed. I think the Lakers will get it, but just a tough loss tonight. But with all that said, I am going to wrap here. Appreciate you guys for rocking with me for a couple hours. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. If you made it this far, the 600 of you, if you have not subscribed yet, please consider doing so. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back tomorrow morning with Lakers Collective. I will also be back tomorrow with a new mailbag. I will talk to you all then.